that need solved for our Go Guru and agency partners? What are some of those top problems?
Well, I think that there are Oh, yeah, sorry. I think that there are problems that are ones like you were talking about this morning of having the confidence to want to do something but not the competence of knowing how to do it.
Hmm.
But I think that a lot of the things that we run into, and me and Drew were discussing this today, is actually getting in there and actually working. And
Yeah,
I think that initiative
I
is a
think that
huge problem.
that thing I was talking about this morning, I wish I could tell you the name of the study, but it's a psychology study, but it's the confidence competence graph.
Right.
Competence. It really is that they said the more competent someone got, the less confident until they get to a certain point. And then it turns into they start to learn more and more about something and they get less confident. So the real rock stars of the world are able to levelize or increase their confidence as they become more competent. So a lot of times I think what we run into is we're training people to do so much that they get bewildered and then they have failure to launch because they're like, okay, there's a lot going on. I've seen people choose simpler, less efficient software because I feel like it makes them feel more competent, which makes them feel more confident,
That is
but they're not
exactly right.
actually more competent.
That is exactly right, because that's what I run into a lot is I'll talk to agents who have that top confidence level that you just had up there.
Hmm.
And if they were to remain in Excel and only work the Medicare side of things, yes, I know Medicare, I know it cold, I can sell to anybody, I can work with anybody, it's great. But as
Hmm.
soon as we throw another piece in there and they're like, well, I really need to have this piece of technology to make my business more profitable and to scale my business to where I want it.
Yeah.
But whenever I introduce this new thing, that confidence level drops completely and it doesn't start to rise back up for quite some time
Yeah.
because there's essentially a lull
So I
between
was,
I'm doing really great here, I got all this confidence, and now I'm having to learn this entire new process.
I believe this happened to me where I had a pretty good amount of confidence in sales and then marketing and I didn't I had a pretty levelized level of confidence and competence for a while. As I'd get more competent I would stay confident, but it was actually the AmeriLife transaction that sank me because I so quickly realized all the things I didn't know about finance
Mm.
and valuation and you guys would think of it as creative math, but like a lot of it's just understanding your true value and how the economy works at a higher level. And in the beginning, it started to sink my confidence because I was like, wow, I just went from the pinnacle of running one of the fastest growing distribution hubs and media brands in our niche and on fire to hey, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, and it just hit me, and I almost got like angry, which emotional. So this is Brandon Dawson talks about this is I don't know the actual graph on it, but emotional intelligence. Let's see, how does he talk about it? You remember he talking about uh, like if you're high emotion, low information, you're acting rashly. So like once I got into this period where they're throwing so much at me so fast, and I was learning it in the process, but I started acting like
Where you get defensive.
defensive. Like, what the hell are
Wow.
you talking about?
I
Like, we're sitting
created
here
I created
growing, and
this
we're
thing.
created this, and you're like, and so now I'm having to like come back up here and say like, okay, I'm capable of learning all of this while continuing to grow and act. And one of the things that's obviously helped us here is we act fast.
Well, having that other concept of what we talk about a lot of being a humble person is really important to that, because if you get down there and you start getting defensive and you can't go back to being humble and saying, okay, well, these people, I might do some things better, or I feel like I do some things better, but it is obvious based on where they are that they are better than me at this. So
Yeah,
I have a lot to learn. I'm going to humble myself and I'm going to learn what I need to learn so that I'm not feeling the way that I feel. And that's going to
yeah,
increase your action and your activity
yeah.
because you're not going to have that anymore.
Kind of coming back to what Will was saying with with Go Guru. I had somebody tell me verbatim one time as like I don't think I need a Ferrari, which, comparing that to Go Guru, I just need like a Honda, to handle my business, which, I mean, you can go 120 miles an hour on a Honda and still have a wreck. The thing is, we're not telling you, like, we don't, and in fact, on most of our demos, we tell people don't implement everything at once. Don't try to do too many things at one time. Like, you can still drive a Ferrari slow to build up to that proficiency level to where you can maintain a high level of, you know, excellence, having a bunch of processes go at once. Kind of, everybody compares themselves to us when they get started, which, I think is, a good thing to mirror. A lot of people want to mirror what we do, but, comparison is a thief of joy. So
When
people are like, I'm not at y'all's level, so I don't think I'll ever be.
Well,
And they
that's
just give
that's the
up and they
thing is
stagnate.
I'll hear them say things like, "Well, I don't have all these team members to do this," as if we started with all these team members to do. Like, as we just started out of the gate with a bunch of technical people. First of all, most of our people weren't technical people. You guys all started sales,
Yeah.
and now you're the technical people. You started admin,
Yeah.
sales. Now you're the most technically inclined guys in the office, right? But it's because of us pushing you and saying, "Hey, I think you have I think you have a technical acumen, and I believe you'll flourish in this role." And then, boom, you guys did, and now we have more people too as well doing that. But
Well, but it's important to get them to take it one step at a time because, and I always tell people that because it is overwhelming. And I think, like you said, what's one of the problems? Well, one of the problems is they just get overwhelmed and they don't do anything
yeah,
because there's too many decisions to make. And then each decision you start digging in too much and getting information overload about that one decision. And the fear of making the wrong decision stops you from even making a decision.
yeah,
And so then you don't do anything. And so I always harp on like use the data to make a decision, but use it to make a decision and make the decision to be done with it.
yeah,
Don't continue to analyze the situation because again, I think that's what people it's essentially like the analysis of paralysis, right? Like you're just getting stuck by too much analyzation. Analyze it, discern, and make that decision and go with it.
yeah.
That's taking the fear of what you're doing out of it. So you shouldn't have that fear. That fear is coming because you're continuing to overanalyze the situation rather than just take it at face value, get it, and then move on.
And that's what, like, when I'm just kind of like creating a bunch of verticals here. Is like you think like, oh, I gotta do this and this and this and this. No, you don't. You got to do this.
Yeah.
That's it. You don't have to do the rest of
One
it.
foot in front of the other.
If you're looking at I got to do this, this, and this, and this, and then you don't do any of them, then is the solve for the problem because it's too much, or is it, or is it, are you incapable? No, you're just not acting one step at a time. Failure to just start and act is a big thing. It's huge. It's the number one thing.
It was one of the reasons I come up with the 45-day review challenge. Just pick one thing and do it.
Yeah.
Pick one thing and plug in to the one thing, and that one thing alone will be worth $97.
Also, remember you earlier on when you started running your first Facebook ads, when you were doing your DVH Facebook ads, there was not near about the education online that there is now. The free education and the free resources that are out there.
Yep.
So a lot of the time, what we find is we will train as well as we can and be there for you as much as we can. We've got a lot going on. I think people woefully underutilize the resources that are online that cost them nothing because they're like, well, if I don't learn how to build the pipeline from Will, then I can't learn how to do it.
Yeah.
It's not true. There are people on YouTube who make their living teaching Go High Level. It's the exact same system.
We learned from those people.
Right.
And a lot of the shit that we do, we just make up and see what works.
Yes.
Now we're able to refine and sometimes help people figure that out. But I was thinking about this. I was watching that video I was just telling you guys about where it was kind of a round table event, and Alex Hermosi and Sam Ovens are in there, and they're talking about creating school.com. And if you don't know what that is, I mean, this is kind of like, it's like this new concept, really. School is like, why is it a new concept? Well, some people would say, well, it's like Trainual. Well, it has an aspect that's like Trainual. And some people, well, it's like Lightspeed. There's an aspect that's like Lightspeed. Well, it's like Facebook groups. Well, there's an aspect that's like Facebook groups. But what they're trying to do is create an actual branded platform that people go to learn and socialize around learning. And so it's this whole new brand. And so a lot of times we look at things the way they are, and they're like, this already exists. this, not this, but this concept exists. Facebook exists, okay? And we're coming from the world of this exists, not thinking about before it did exist. And so the reason I'm saying that is sometimes you're talking about educational marketing gets is when I came in, it was like jab jab jab, jab right hook. Gary Vaynerchuk was like the forefront of telling people educate, educate, educate. Russell Brunson was hitting on it a little bit, educate, 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 and then eventually ask for the close. The thing is, now that's commonplace. So some people have to think outside the box. And what can you do to either take that a step further to back it up? It's also that, does the marketing psychology work in waves? Maybe the free education's played out, and sometimes you could just go straight back to asking for the close or asking for the lead, and you might find out that it works. I don't know that it will, but the real winners are on the cusp of trying the new psychological trend.
Right.
This school.com concept, I really believe, with Alex Hormozy and Sam Ovens, will end up changing the way people learn and communicate around learning. And one day it'll be like school.com will be this commonplace thing like Google or Facebook. And so I just think if you get people to realize the world's changing, and by the time it's commonplace and you're trying to replicate it, the biggest reward is already gone.
Yeah.
Like most of the things that we do, we want you to utilize a tool like Go Guru to basically create a next wave. Now, in the process, we can replicate some things that turn a dollar into two or turn a dollar into $1.50, but the real reward is when you figure out how to turn a nickel into $10, and you can do that by being, first to the party, or at least an early adapter. A very early adapter. How do you become an early adapter? Being first to the party might sound like, I don't know if I'm capable of that. I don't know if I'm brilliant enough to come up with that idea. Sometimes the ideas aren't that brilliant. But let's say you just want to be an early adapter. So I want to get in early on a concept. The best way to do that is be part of a mastermind, be part of a group of people that are talking about their ideas openly. And unfortunately, that comes from being a top producer. If somebody comes into our hierarchy and they write a tremendous amount of business, they might be turning a dollar into $1.10. It might not be, but to me, it's a lot of production.
Right.
So they get on my radar. Now they're on my radar. Now I'm sharing cutting edge information, that little bit stuff that we don't talk about because it's so fruitful that I only want my close knit partners that are also sharing things with me and we're working together. So early adapting is something I think people, if you really wanted to hack, I don't know if I'm the guy that's going to create the next wave, or maybe that's a long shot, but I could be an early adapter. I can implement. Now, what do you have to do? How many ideas have you heard that we didn't act on that later on you're like, man, we should have done that? That's that early adaptation that most people are sitting there looking at it. There's even ideas that we did adapt that I commonly say we should have spent more money on and more time on. Kind of like that damn dental vision hearing ad I had that was like printing money for us, 8-9 years ago. And I started putting out a video to agents saying, oh, you can make a lot of money on Facebook spending $5 to $10 a day. You could at that time. Why didn't we spend 50 or 100 or 200? Now we're commonly spending $2,000 or $3,000 a day just for our internal agency and probably managing, $50,000 to $100,000 a day in ad spend for agency partners or kind of overseeing that and setting it in motion. And we're completely okay with it. And but I'm not saying why didn't we go from 50 to 50,000, but why didn't we go from 50 to 250?
Right.
If you have something that's working, double down on it, because honey holes dry up.
Yep.
And the only way you're going to find them is to create them out of thin air or be an early adapter. You can also early adapt just by being really intuitive and trying to figure out what other people are doing through the Facebook ads library. Just be careful, because some people have a good intuition about what's working and what they should replicate versus just seeing ads that people are running for a long time. So kind of a contextual tip there. If you're in insurance and you're watching this, do not replicate insurance carrier or mega call center ads on Facebook. They don't necessarily have a good CPA because they're big. They have a lot of money to burn.
Right.
Find the people that are out of nowhere making a lot of money. They're the ones you should be replicating and trying to figure out what they're doing. And if you can't replicate them, figure out how to join them and befriend them and get close to them and provide enough value where they will share things with you, because they will share things at events, at I was watching that video I was talking about yesterday. So if you don't know who Sam Ovens is, he started school.com, but before that, he was like the first high ticket closing coach out there that was coaching other people on how to go out and like a coach to coach guy. Now that's pretty common. Sam Ovens was like one of the first, like a long time ago. He was one of the first that was teaching people to do that. I mean, there's some other people, like people that had like certifications like John Maxwell and Grant Cardone and all that stuff. But Sam Ovens is like one of those out of thin air coaching other people in high ticket sales. And Sam said in there that he was asked to speak at an event, and he didn't like speaking at events. He just hates it. He's introvert. He wanted to build his software. He'd been working on it for a decade, and he goes on to look at who's speaking at the event that he was invited to, and Alex Hormozy was on there, and he wanted to get Alex Hormozy to be a school.com partner. So he went to the event with the intention of speaking, but just to meet Alex Hormozy. And now Alex Hormozy is a partner in school.com. But be intentional. If you know somebody's doing something well, then get to an event where they're at. Like I'll be in a mastermind in San Diego next week. You guys will be there with me. Sid back there is going to be there. I'll be at a annuityproducers.com event this weekend. Guarantee you I know something that you need to know. That annuityproducers.com event is going to have like 50 people at it. And then I'm going to have a whole down day in Austin where I'm meeting with a whole bunch of people. So it's, get in the room with those people so you can be an early adapter. But also quit being afraid to just try stuff.
Yeah.
Like, just try it and act. And it's so quickly to the point, though, that the number one problem we see is so simple. It's not lack of technical acumen. Occasionally we have somebody that's in there that struggles with that. But for the most part, it's just they're getting overwhelmed by realizing that they were competent in this small arena, and then when this exists, their competence goes up because they're learning about it, but their confidence level goes down, and then they don't even act on any individual principle because there's just so much. And that's sad.
I think it was just coming back to what you're saying, like you've got people on both ends of the spectrum. You've got people that are fearful over here, afraid to like try that next thing that they think could be the next big thing. Then you've got people that are constantly chasing, fool's gold, the next shiny object, to where, you need to, manage your fear, not be fearful to try new things, but also use discernment,
Yeah.
critical thinking skills, like we were talking about earlier, that,
Oh, it's
one of the biggest skills to have.
The most efficient, like honestly, early on, one of the mistakes we've made, and we've wrangled and figured it out. One of the mistakes we made is we're like, okay, we're doing this really well. Hey, then we have this attention here. How can we do this? And it's like, oh, we could do this, and then it splits, and it's like we're splitting our focus, which made it harder to scale. And then there were some times where we had to dial back in to figure out what are we good at and best at. But if you're trying to grow an agency, it's simple. Like the data is simple. Like I need maybe 1, 2, or 3 data points, and they're all correlated. LTV, CPA, profit, right? And then maybe on the call side of that, it's you're looking at your leads, your call count from your agents or your sales team, talk time, and you're just trying to take these sales metrics to figure out how you can get that CPA, at an acceptable rate in a quantity enough to continue to scale. It's just simple, but most people are like looking at how much there is to do and how many things can be tracked. And they're like, they start tracking things. Like that's like the reporting side of GoGuru was one that bewildered me. It's like the reporting side of that, the way we've built out Google Data Studio, the way we're using new software now will collect so many data points. We're not using most of them. And so many people are like, how do I get this data and this data? And it's like, dude, you're not going to even be able to utilize this data. Like, you don't have the capability to utilize this data, and it's not all that relevant to utilize it.
I was gonna say you're not to the point where it matters.
Right.
Right. So, really, there for a little while, it's how much talk time am I getting, and then And if I need talk time, I might need more leads to get me more talk time. So, but it's like very finite amount of actual data that I would track. Sometimes I'm jealous when I find a small agency that figures out how simple it is and starts to scale because they have such a simplistic model. And it's just like all you got to worry about is getting enough leads for these people to get on the phone and and then pushing them to spend enough time on the phone to get this many sales and have the lead cost low enough to where that cost per acquisition is here, but it continues to be scalable at that cost per acquisition. That formula from a sales team is so easy.
I know. I look at some of these agents and agencies that I talk to sometimes, and I'm like, God, if that's all I had to think about,
Yeah.
like how well we could do that if that's all we were doing,
Dude.
So it's
A lot of the time, whenever people do ask for that information, what I find is they are actually writing business still.
Yeah.
So when they say, "Oh, I want to track all of this, I want to look at all of this," and then they say, "Well, I want to look at this at the end of the day." Like, okay, well,
And what time?
yeah, you're spending the majority of your time writing business. It's going to be this
Yeah.
information is not going to do a whole lot for you
I-
if you're constantly writing. You need somebody dedicated to that
you
information.
don't have a wife and kids.
Right.
It is.
With those operations like that,
Like people act like they're the CEO of what, right?
Right.
I'm a producer. I need to get to sales manager. Like when you guys came in, I was a producer slash manager. Eventually, and we didn't do it fast enough. We became more, out of sorts. But was I a CEO? A CEO of what? I needed to get to a sales manager so I could manage those producers. Then I'm actually looking at some data. And in the beginning, it's like you're the producer, you're the marketer, you're the everything, but it's simple, right? If you think it's hard when you're doing everything as a producer, wait until you're here. The easy part for me is where I'm at now, where I've emerged, where I have you leading and I have you leading and I have other people leading and doing tasks. That's what you're aiming for. But when you get here and then you build up, and let's say you're an operator and you have sales managers or whatever, or you're a CMO and you're doing all this, so you get to a point where you're doing all that, right? But like the easy part is when you can make other people be these people and start to emerge that leadership. But you're mad in here because that part sucks. And everybody will be here trying to get data as if we had any freaking data here. It was bang the damn phones, like sale, sale, sale. We get so, we want to be a tech company, in this industry. We want to be tech. We want to be marketing. And those are great. And you should strive to do those things. But at the end of the day, you're a producer and then you're a sales team.
Just keep adding to that. I mean, throw marketer in there, right?
Yeah,
You're the marketer.
you're the marketer. Yeah, I mean, you're
Your marketer, your
you're
HR.
really going producer. And honestly, what I did, I think I went marketer producer. That's how I emerged. Then eventually, it was sales manager, marketer, producer, and finally, I think at some point me and Steven at the same time shed the producer side of it. But you can emerge however we could have emerged faster. I mean, if you don't think once you've been through a business, I think this is a good question. Once if you go into a room of business owners and you ask the ones that had a business before how fast they think they could do it, or how fast they did it in the second business after they did the first, they made tons of mistakes. Most of the time, the mistake was whatever decision we made that helped us, we should have made that decision faster. If it's fire somebody, we should have fired somebody. If it's quit being a producer, we should have quit being a producer faster. You're the bottleneck. You're constantly the bottleneck of your business, and you got to keep breaking that shit, and then you become the bottleneck again. And then you have to continue to shatter that bottle and get out of the damn way. And it's always painful. It's always hard. I can't stop producing because I'm half the production. Join the club. Like, I can't have my sales managers. I can't promote. Who should be the sales manager? What should be your top producers? Yeah, but they produce so much. Just like I did. I have to evolve them. Is it painful? to lose Holt and Jackson's production January of next year. It feels painful, but I also know that all those now I have much more confidence in those decisions. One of the reasons I have confidence in those decisions is because I surround myself with people who've already been through that. I mean, Jaggeresh told me, he's like, I delayed way too long making my top producers the sales managers. And I immediately came back from that and started telling Jackson and Holt they needed to be the sales managers. And then we created a timeline for them to quit producing.
How do you think you prevent like that delay from happening? Like, what is it? Is it a metric, or is it something you identify in the business specifically?
So there's, I know there's gut and data, and and over time you're always pushing towards using more and more data to make decisions, but a lot of that data is does become in your brain and drives my gut. So my gut now tells me that I know what it's like to get advice from someone who has been where I'm trying to go. It doesn't mean that they've created the exact business you're trying to create. But one thing I know about Jagger's business is that he knows sales team management. He understands the infrastructure of it. So he gives me that advice. I know what it's like now from the data I've collected by making the mistake of not listening to the advice. Even recently, I've heard it so many times. Fire fast, hire fast, fire faster, promote fastest. And then I still didn't do it. I didn't fire people fast enough. There were certain people that needed to go, and they caused you problems. How much money did certain employees cost us at times? Tons of it. All because what? I was too chicken shit to fire them. I was trying to salvage them. I'm trying to be empathetic. Who am I really being? Am I really being empathetic, or am I just hurting everybody else in here? And the more people you get, the more that it becomes like, I'm not just hurting by me being a chicken shit. I'm not hurting myself. I'm hurting you, because now you can't flourish because we're in a business that isn't getting enough revenue to give the raises that everyone deserves, you know? Like it could be that Mike deserves a raise, but I can't give it to him because, Bill, we'll just say Bill over here because I don't want to name drop anybody, but Bill's over here, seeding doubt in the sales team, which is reducing our income. So I'm sitting here looking at the P&L and I'm like, we're not growing fast enough for me to be given raises, even though people do deserve them. People deserving a raise doesn't mean the business made enough money to give them a raise. So I had to figure out how to get rid of the bullshit. So I think that it's not a KPI or data point necessarily. It's that your gut in and of itself develops data set over time from making the wrong decision. And the big one is when I tell you, when somebody watches this and they're like, he's right, and then they still don't do what we're saying, just act on one variable at a time. Fire people quickly when you believe they're going to do harm to your business. Don't let the 2% chance that you're wrong make you not act. This is really what it is,
So, but basically, it's the data you get from being wrong a couple times that feeds the affirmation in your gut.
Yes.
Yeah, but I also think too is like seeking out mentorship as somebody that's in a similar position, similar industry as you that you can talk to. Like, and I think that's helped him a lot with making the decisions. Even though like it's your gut, but why is it your gut? Well, I've had a lot of advice and consultation from other people in the industry who I respect and know they have a successful business, so that influences my gut, right? Like, is it all just a made up gut? Well, no, like my gut's influenced by the data. My gut's influenced by my consultation and mentorship. And
It's perfectly put because, I was talking to Tim and we consult people, right? And I by no means want to get people to not pay us for consulting because we definitely have ideas. And especially when you come into our team, we're going to help you find break points and figure things out. But so much of consulting is just telling people something. It's like giving them permission to act on the feeling or the data they already have.
we said this a couple of weeks ago. It's almost just the affirmation, the confirmation that what I'm doing is right. It's on the right track.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in a Brandon Dawson's BLMP. It's literally $180,000 a year mastermind. And you're in there with business owners that, some of these guys have $100 million a year businesses. The smaller ones are our size in there, like by gross revenue. Net revenue, maybe some of them are, about half of our size. But that's the kind of room. And when you're in there, everything he says, not everything, there's some things that are like, oh, I write that down, that's great. But so much of what is said is like,
Yep.
yeah, I know that.
Yep.
And then, but then when it's like, but I'm not doing it. So who's the real idiot? You know, like I'm paying that much to be in a room to hear something from somebody that I already know or I've already heard. But it's like me ponying up and being part of it and feeling like it just makes me feel like, wow, I just paid that much for that information. I already had it. I'm such a jackass for not acting on the information and the gut feeling that I already have.
Now I have to do it.
Now I have to do it or I'm a dumbass, you know? And so I'm not telling you to pay for consulting for that reason. You know, try to find people that actually have some of the technical skill set they can impart. But a lot of times it's just you feel a certain way and you're allowing some sort of weakness or some sort of doubt to prevent you from taking that action or moving forward or trying things. But the failure becomes the data, like you're talking about. The failure can be the data. And then you'll reach a point where you have to let other people on your team fail, you know, and then tell them, like, if you screw something up, we'll fix it. You know, I have yet to encounter a screw up that is so big that we couldn't overcome it. And most of the time, it ends up highlighting something that makes us better. Right? The screw up is like, oh, we have a weakness in this area. How can we fix it?
I mean, that's where growth comes from, is learning from mistakes.
You know how many people we've fired because of one or two screw ups? Zero. Zero. Now, what is a problem for us is if we can't get people to act, you know, on their own information, and we have to impart confidence on them. And I think that we become that mastermind for our employees of, I go out and have to get it somewhere else so I can bring it back in and keep everybody else like moving in the right direction. And that's another thing is I feel like there have been points where I get to an arena or like an area in our business where I'm like, start thinking like, wow, look at what we've done. And then I'll like get complacent for a little bit. And then I'm like, I got to go out and figure out what the next step is, or people aren't going to be motivated to be here anymore. If we're not growing, and I'm not helping them grow, and I'm not, and they don't see a future to make more money or to grow, in their business or to watch the businesses they're part of grow, then it's not going to go anywhere. So like, I think that's getting out and getting that so that I can bring it back in and be that for the people that are here.
I think that's a really, really good point and something that you've been doing lately. And I've never really looked at it this way until right now, but we're talking about essentially goals are shifting, goals are changing. So when you invest in yourself, right, and you put yourself in these leadership programs and you're learning these things that you've heard the information, you haven't put the information in place, but now you've heard it again, and now your goal has changed. And so now it's you who wants to come and bring those goals into us. The goal alignment part of it, I think, is the most important thing that you've talked about over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Because if you can get your entire team on board with the same goal, going towards the same mission,
Yeah.
then you can grow it to where you need to. Where the firing really comes in is when you're like, well, this is the direction that we're going.
Yeah.
And I am in charge of this ship. And
Yeah.
I need you to be on board. I want to take you with me. If you're not going to be with me on this, as much as I like you, I got to let you go.
If they're not bought in
Right.
to what we're doing,
And that's and the goals are going to change.
and when you grow your business to create, and it's so hard to talk to agency owners where they're hiring their first LOA or their second LOA or their first admin or second admin. It's very difficult in the beginning to get people to buy into the vision. So you got to break through that ceiling. Once you break through and you start to create a unit and people are like, I like being part of this team. This is a good team. People care about it. Once you create that, you'll end up getting a line where it's easy to hire. Once it's easy to hire, don't hold on to somebody that's not bought into the vision. And the goal alignment thing, it's another one I give throw up Brandon Dawson. I give credit where credit's due. They talk, it's heavy goal alignment, personal, professional, financial goals, working with my team to figure out what are their goals, and then working with their counterparts and their respective divisions to figure out what are their goals. And the goal alignment, the definition of goal alignment in a business is that each individual person in your business's goal for themselves needs to be as important to them as our goals in this business are for us. If they're not, if my goal, if I care about my goal more than Mike cares about his goal, then we aren't in goal alignment, because I want the business to help him accomplish his goal. But in order for him to commit to the business, his goal has to be as important to him as my goal is for me.
Right.
And then when we utilize the business to bring everyone's goals up, that's what we need to work on. And that is what we're working on. And it's funny it's another one of those things that I was up in Ohio, never even thought I'd go to Ohio. Went up and saw a Great Lake, by the way. Weird. Like an ocean
Big lake.
in Ohio. It's weird. Go up, see the Great Lake, go to this. They're talking about all this stuff. It's the same shit that they've already taught me and that we quit doing. We started doing it, we quit, and we never really got it to the point where we needed to be. But now I have a better understanding of how important it is. I've even seen people in our industry implement it better than I did and saw how quickly it helped their team flourish. And I'm like, it's one of those moments. It's like, damn, I already knew this and we're not acting on it. And so that's why it's super important to us.
What do you think stops that momentum? Like, okay, this is great, we're doing this, and then all of a sudden you get distracted with something else.
I think it's it's seasonality. It's I don't have time. It's all the, and it's not necessarily like I'm saying I don't have time, but it's like we can let that go to the wayside. We'll pick it back up later, or you're not implementing it properly, or you're not putting enough emphasis on why it's important. I think it's why when I came back from BMLP this last time and we had a leadership meeting, and I wanted you guys to know how important it was to me. That's why when some people would say like, well, it's another one of those compliance meetings. Hey, that's okay. We get it. And I'm like, no, this is not. Like, there are some compliance things that we have to do. I don't place a lot of importance on those.
Right.
I place the importance on getting them done and operating the way we need to. I don't want it to come across in a bad way. But the importance in the business is on us, me letting you guys know how important it is for you to lead, for me to lead you, and for this to not be a going through the motions. The first time we tried to implement it, it was going through the motions, and so I lacked the desire to continue because it was cumbersome and not beneficial. But it wasn't the process; it was the way we were doing. It wasn't the information in and of itself; it was the way that we were implementing. And so we just have to place more intention on it and and that needs to go all the way down to the brand new employee, how important it is, how it is. That is what is important here. That is what is important. You're going to have contextual goals. An agent needs 18 hours of talk time weekly. If they're not getting 18 hours of talk time, we're going to look at, are you getting 100 calls a day? If you're not getting 100 calls a day, now we know it's an effort issue. There are different metrics that we're going to look at to get them where they need to go. But overall, it starts with, if we truly believe that you have a goal that's as big as ours, we can probably work out all the stuff in the middle. Once the goal alignment is there, people will do the work overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
All right. And to that avail, let's go back to work.